the role of the pillarization and depillarization process in the development of the Dutch system of law regarding church-state relations.
Thank you very much. I will present the role of the pillarization and depillarization processes in the development of the Dutch system of law regarding church-state relations, but defined in a very broad way, because here I will refer mainly to the system of education and to some laws regarding the freedom of religion. So I will not refer to the separation of church and state, nor to the state's neutrality, which in my opinion is rather a myth or an ideal and not which cannot be met in practice. So my presentation will refer to two dimensions. First, I will present the historical background with regard to the process of pillarization, and then the process of depillarization, which is the erosion of the system of a pillar-based society in the Netherlands. I will, of course, define the pillars and the whole period of pillar-based society. Then I will also refer to some legislative developments with regard to Dutch constitutions and the system, primarily the system of religious education, which in my opinion is the core, the fundamental aspect of church-state relations in almost every country, and also plays a relevant role in the public debate in Europe now and earlier. So with regard to the historical background, I will begin with the 19th century, which was marked formally by religious freedom and the separation of church and state, but in practice only one community, which was the Protestant community, or rather different Protestant communities, because here we should distinguish a number of sub-denominations with regard to Protestantism. So these communities played a prime role in the social system and the culture of the Netherlands. And here the Orthodox Protestant wing played a crucial role, so the Calvinist wing, and I will just in a minute I will tell you why this wing played such an important role. And the main issue in the debate in that period, so since the very beginning of the 19th century, was freedom of education, and here also the Dutch freedom of education was defined in a bit different way than our contemporary comprehension of the term. With regard to the historical background, with reference to pillarization, we should remember that this period began or was initiated in the second half of the 19th century. I say was initiated because in my opinion it was not a bottom-up process, but rather a top-down, politically stimulated process of setting different pillars in Dutch society. And the process began to erode in the 1960s. But again, it was rather a contractual date, because we cannot distinguish, we cannot delineate really one certain date when the process eroded. Some some elements of the system eroded a bit earlier, and some elements are still present, like in the system of education, which I will try to prove here. In the 19th century, the process of pillarization just began in the Netherlands, and here we should refer to one very important person in Dutch history, and this was Abraham Kuyper, who coined the concept of sovereignty within one's own circle. It is a very important concept in Dutch culture, because it referred to the autonomy or sovereignty of the family, the school, and the church. Later on, this concept was politically used or instrumentally used just to form the social pillars. And with regard to pillars, we can distinguish in that period, so in the mid-19th century, we can distinguish three basic pillars, and these are Protestants, Catholics, and liberals. But with regard to liberals, in this concept, I refer to the universal pillar, so just to the rest of Dutch society. These are not liberals in the contemporary understanding of the term. And again, referring to different criteria, we can distinguish either three, so these three pillars, or four pillars. And here we should add the socialist pillar. But this pillar did not play a relevant role with regard to the church-state relations in the Netherlands. I will define the term, but first I would like to say that first, the system of social pillars was based on the family, on the school, and on the church, but later a number of different organizations were just included in the system. So with regard to these organizations, I may enumerate, for instance, youth associations, insurance associations, trade unions, and this is still, which are still present in Dutch society with reference to different worldview backgrounds, and of course political parties. And this is just this element of social pillars that plays the core role, and without political parties, in fact, we cannot speak of any pillars. And now the definition. So this definition, this is Krebs' definition of social pillars, and I am using this because this definition was also used by Arend Leibhardt, and I am a political scientist, so for me this is just this most important thing. If this definition is used by someone who plays a role in the political theory, and social pillars in this definition are segments of social organizations and social forms of coexistence, which rest upon certain worldview foundations, so not necessarily religion, that are equal to the law, function within the frameworks of a broader worldview, but yet rather racially and ethnically homogeneous democratic society or nation. And this is relevant because now, if we, in the Dutch public debate nowadays, Islamic communities are very often treated as pillars, and the adherents of this theory say that, of course, they have their own schools, their own associations, their own clubs, but they also aim to establish their own political parties. Of course, these parties do not play any role in the political debate, but in fact this is just this final step of polarization. But if we look at this definition and at this cultural background, then Islamic community cannot be defined as a pillar. And now, with regard to the system of law, because this is just this crucial core element of my presentation, or should be. I will begin with the Constitution of 1848, which was a very liberal constitution. And this constitution introduced equality of different denominations in the Netherlands, freedom of religion, and freedom of education. The one thing that was really opposed by the communities, and here Protestants played a relevant role, so they opposed this provision, it was the introduction of universal public education. I don't think I have enough time to present the whole